सलाम पाकिस्तान, मैं हूं इफ्तिखार फिरदौस और आप देख रहे हैं पॉलिटॉक्स। नाजरीन, इस प्रोग्राम में हम तवातुर के साथ उलमाए कराम और एक्सपर्ट्स को जो है वो बुलाते रहे हैं ताकि एक कौमी बयानिए के हवाले से बात की जाए और जो पॉलिसीज हैं कि इस कौमी बयानिए को कैसे ऐसे तरीके से जो है वो आवाम के सामने लेकर आया जाए कि वो उनकी इफादियत और अहमियत दोनों जो है वो वाज़ेह हों। इसीलिए आज के प्रोग्राम के अंदर हमने कुछ इंटरनेशनल एक्सपर्ट्स को जो है वो मदऊ किया है जो इस टाइम पाकिस्तान जो है वो आए हुए हैं और इसी किस्म की डिस्कशंस में जो है वो इन्वॉल्व हैं। इनका काफ़ी एक्सपीरियंस है दुनिया के ममालिक में, अफ्रीका से लेकर अमेरिका से बरतानिया में और एशिया के दीगर ममालिक के अंदर, जिधर इन्होंने हुकूमत के साथ मिलकर जो है ऐसे प्रोग्राम्स जो है वो तोज़ी दिए हैं जिसके बयानिया जो है वो तरवीज भी हो और उसको जो है इम्पॉर्टेंटली हाईलाइट भी जो है वो किया जा सके। इसीलिए आज हमें ज्वाइन किया है एना शेरबन ने, जो हिदाया इंस्टीट्यूट को रिप्रेजेंट कर दी हैं और जो काउंटरिंग वायलेंट एक्सट्रीमिज्म है उसकी एक्सपर्ट हैं, और उनके साथ जो है वो मौजूद हैं डॉक्टर क्लार्क मैकॉले, जो एक साइकोलॉजिस्ट हैं और दहशतगर्दी के जो अनासर हैं उसकी साइकोलॉजी पर जो है वो उबूर रखते हैं। थैंक यू वेरी मच टू बोथ आवर गेस्ट्स टुडे फॉर टेकिंग द टाइम आउट एंड टॉकिंग टू अस अबाउट सच एन इमर्जिंग प्रॉब्लम विद इन पाकिस्तान and how to actually counter it and come across this, because the CVE and PVE space within Pakistan is something that there is a renewed conversation about, and there's a lot of discussion on how to actually tap into the right answers as well. But I'll start with you, Dr. Macaulay. Is that how do we differentiate between extremist attitudes and extremist actions? And how do these both converge at some point, or is there even some convergence?
Well, in general, my view is that the relation between extreme ideas and extreme action is weak. It's very weak. I say that because we have polls and we know that there are many people with extreme ideas, hundreds, maybe thousands of people with extreme ideas for every one person who turns to extreme action. So that means that an attitude or an opinion or an extreme idea is a very weak guide, very weak predictor of extreme action. And furthermore, we know that there are many individuals who get involved in extreme action for personal reasons that have nothing to do with political ideas. Some people join a militant group because a friend or a relative is already militant and asks them to help. Some join because they are looking for status and power. Kind of people who might say, I always wanted a gun in my hands. And then there are people who join for escape. They're in some kind of trouble, family problems, legal problems with the police maybe. And they want to escape from the situation they're in, and they join a militant group to escape. And some people just join because they're in a strange place, they're new in town, they have no friends, and a militant offers friendship. So these are all personal reasons for joining a militant group. They're not ideological reasons, they're not extreme ideas reasons. And so on the one hand, we have very few people with extreme ideas ever act, and on the other hand, we know many people join in extreme action who have not had any extreme ideas. And you put these two facts together, and the conclusion is extreme ideas are only very weakly related to extreme action. And my conclusion from that is it's not very useful to target extreme ideas in an effort to get rid of or to reduce extreme action.
So based upon the conversation that Dr. Macaulay has, Ms. Sheban, I'll come to you. And my question in relation to this is, because this looks like a complicated method to sort of who to take actions against and who not to. And when we look at the CVE, PVE space and in its rational existence, on when there is actionable data to take action against someone, you have to come up with perceived plans. And that's where the national action plans actually come in.
Absolutely.
You've been an expert and you've designed that for multiple countries or helped design them. How do you see that? How do these actors interact within it, and how do you bring it into a cohesive whole so that it can be an actionable plan?
It's an incredibly challenging thing, and as Dr. Macaulay described, the motivations and reasons and experiences that people become involved in extremism are many and varied. And as a consequence, when we are thinking about things at a national or state level, a nation-state level or a society level, we need to have a really diverse range of responses that can be as flexible to those individual drivers as possible. What we have found at my organisation, Hidayah, the International Centre for Countering Extremism, is that we need to take a whole-of-society approach to prevention. And what that means is that we need to look at how we build the resilience of the community, the resilience of individuals, particularly those who may be more at risk of engaging in extremism than others. And of course, we also need to think about how we rehabilitate and reintegrate people who've been involved in extremism in the past. A whole-of-society approach also means that we need to establish a firm base of evidence. The things that are driving extremism in one part of Pakistan are different than the things that are driving extremism in Iraq or in Malay.
So what you mean to say is that one size will not fit all?
One size definitely doesn't fit all. And I think one of the important things is that the process of making a national framework means that we can come together and build a shared understanding of what is needed, but it also needs to be quite specific. What are we going to do about it? And I think the best national action plans don't just write a dream plan, they write a realistic plan. Who's going to take action? What is the expected outcome? And what do we think will change as a result of this action plan? It's also really important, I think, that when you take that plan, you use it to communicate to the whole country. What is it we expect of you? What action are we taking? And why it is in service of our community and our society. But you're right, it's always got to be contextualized and localized to the local conditions, because every place and every individual is different.
So when Dr. Macaulay, I'll come back to you, when she says that you have to connect, how do you connect? What are the frames of those connections?
Well, this is my colleague's line, more than mine, but I would say it's useful to start with the question, how do we consider the psychological origins? What are the psychological and emotional supports for terrorism or political violence? And to answer that question, I think we have to start from recognizing that terrorism and political violence is the result of an intergroup conflict. I say that, which seems kind of obvious, because many people try to analyze terrorists and political violent perpetrators as if we only need to understand them. But once you understand that terrorism is an expression of a political conflict, it means you have to recognize that you have to study both sides. You have to understand the terrorists and you have to understand the government that they're fighting against. It's a conflict. You can't understand if you study only one any more than you could understand a tennis match by focusing only on one player. And once you realize that, then the next thing to realize is, where does the conflict come from? And psychologically it comes from love. Not from hate, but from love. It's the love of your own group, your religion, your ethnic group, your national group. And then with that love, if you see a threat to your people, harm to your people, victimization of your people, this produces anger, some fear, shame if you're not doing anything to help your people. And it's these emotions that power up and escalate the group conflict toward violence.
We'll just take a very short break before I come to you. I'm going to start from where Dr. Macaulay actually left off, Shaiban, and I'll ask you in terms of how do we connect then? What's the point of connection between these various parts of the state in order to carve out a strategy, and how much weight does narrative building carry, and what should those narratives actually be based upon? नाज़रीन हमारे साथ रहिएगा, गुफ्तगू का सिलसिला यहाँ से भी आगे जारी रखेंगे. Welcome back, नाज़रीन. So the question before we went on the break was, how do you sort of gel all of this in to sort of come up with a plan where you can actually connect with the people. In your experience and when you look at the context within Pakistan, how will all this come together?
I think that Pakistan has already made a really strong start with their national action plan and thinking about how you want to address and solve the problem of extremism and violent extremism in this country. But of course, we always have to start with the answer of no one actor, no one agency can fix this problem. It is a whole of society issue and it needs a whole of society response. Now, coordinating a whole of society response is not easy because we need everyone involved: civil society, teachers, parents, policing, social workers. Everyone has a part to play. So I think really what is important is that the role that we play is we need to build a shared understanding of the problem. We need to think about who requires new skills to be able to play a part and build their capacity and capability to do so. And then, of course, we need to be constantly evaluating is the impact of the actions that we are taking having the necessary effect? Is the threat environment changing? You can't write a policy and then be done with it. It needs to be constantly implemented, evaluated and redesigned. The threat is always changing and so our response needs to as well. But the one thing that is crucially important is we all need to play our part and we all need to be accountable to one another for the actions we're taking.
In terms of accountability, when we look at these plans and how they're framed within society and its actual implementation, technology plays a very deep part of it. And one of the things that have changed for Pakistan when you look at the Pakistani context is that the violence in the first quarter of this century was basically much without the use of technology in almost every hand. And I'm referring to, social media as well as tools that are now being used for online, radicalization and conveying of propaganda from the terrorist side. How would we now at this point instance, when you go into review, sort of tackle it, because some of these plans that were made were probably like 10 years ago. There has been a review, but technology has been the changer.
The kind of technology that I worry about the most are videos that can be transmitted on everybody's cell phone. It used to be that there were journalists who told us what was happening. Now everybody's a journalist. Everybody with a cell phone is a journalist. And the pictures, and especially the videos of people suffering, are, I think, the greatest impetus to action, including violent action. I don't think there's a good way to make those videos go away. And what that means is that the technology is powering emotions. Those videos of victims and suffering, of the people that we care about, those are very powerful instruments for emotional stimulation. And it's those emotions that I was referring to earlier. There's anger, there's fear, there's humiliation. And these emotions power action and move people too often, to violence.
So when it becomes so complicated with the use of technology, how do you implement this within actionable plans? Because you can't just shut down the internet. You can't shut down modes of communication. That has been, one of the modus operandi that we've seen, but it's had severe public backlash as well. How do you deal with it then? Do you construct a counter narrative? Do you construct positive propaganda? What do you do then?
I think we need to do a lot of different things, and every step takes us one step closer. Obviously, there are settings where content moderation is appropriate. If there is propaganda being published that depicts violence, we might want to take action against that. And through partnership with organisations like the Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism, which is a technology-based body, there's lots of action being taken to decide what kind of content should be made harder to source on the internet so that we can protect some users from exposure to it. But you're absolutely right. Shutting down the internet and content moderation is not the whole solution. It can only ever be part of it. What we need to do is also recognize the incredible power of technology for helping those of us who want to build peace and counter extremism to be more impactful. We have in our hands through social media the ability to connect with people we've never been able to connect with before. And through new technology such as generative AI, we are seeing new opportunities open up before us to create content, to simultaneously translate issues, to help us structure some of our thoughts and ideas. Some recent work that we've done at Hidayah has shown us that there is incredible power in harnessing these technologies for peace building. But it also needs us to think twice about the directions we're heading. We need to make sure we keep humans in the loop. Machines can't make all the decisions by themselves. And we also need to think about how we make these systems as safe as we can from the very beginning.
In terms of, countering propaganda and its psychological effects, what are the best practices then?
Well, the best answer that I can offer is we should be trying to argue against violence in particular. I don't think it's useful to try to convince people that the harm, the violence, the victimization that they see happening to their own people. I don't think it's very useful to try to persuade the viewers that their people are not suffering. But I think there is some chance of persuading people that the harm they see is not going to be helped by violence.
But not all, propaganda or terrorists or our counter narratives or counter strategies can be non-violent. How do you navigate through that then?
In terms of communication strategies in particular, I think one of the things is we often focus on counter narratives. The terrorists say one thing, we say another thing, it becomes an argument. I think that really relies on the idea that sometimes this is a rational choice, and presented with two rational arguments, people will make the right decision. I think a lot of the time what we actually need to be focusing on is alternative narratives, recognizing that the reasons that people might become drawn to particular groups or ideas are often emotional. It's about wanting a sense of belonging. It's about wanting to feel like they have power over their own lives. As a society, we should also be offering that to people. And one of the things that we really try and do is work with partners, whether it's law enforcement, governments, civil society, or even religious leaders, to give them the skills to be online, to be in the places where people need access to their wisdom and their insight. And I know there are lots of examples from around the world. There are police officers who have gaming units so that they can meet young people online where they're most vulnerable. So I think that it's really important, certainly in the work that we do, to think about the power of people and the power of the alternative narrative that we can offer as a society.
Thank you very much for this discussion. नाज़रीन, हमारे मेहमानों की गुफ्तगू जो है वो आपने सुनी, और उसमें एक बात तो बहुत क्लियर है कि अगर कोई ऐसे बयानिया बनाने जाना है जिसमें इफादियत भी हो और उसके इम्पॉर्टेंट एलिमेंट्स जो है वो सोसाइटी के अंदर जो है वो पूरे तरीके से फंक्शनल हो, बहुत ज़रूरी है कि एक वन नेशन अप्रोच के साथ, जो इस प्रोग्राम में कई बार जितने एक्सपर्ट्स आए उन्होंने यही बात की है कि वन नेशन अप्रोच के साथ जो है ये बयानिया कामयाबी की तरफ जो है वो जाएगा. जितने भी एलिमेंट्स हैं उन सब के सब की फीडबैक और उन सब का अपना काम करना जो है वो बहुत ज़रूरी है. और पॉलिसीज़ के लिए सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट बात यह है कि वो सिर्फ बनाए ना जाएं बल्कि उसकी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन मैकेनिज्म सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट है. प्रोग्राम्स के अंदर इसी तरह की गुफ्तगू का सिलसिला आगे भी जारी रहेगा. देखते रहिएगा बॉर्डर टॉक्स.